Once again, please settle down. We will now start our next session. We will now resume our program. Our next session is a fireside chat on AI and well-being at work. May I request our panelists to come up on stage as their names are called. Ms. Pauline Fermin, President and CEO of Acumen Strategic Consulting Incorporated. Ms. L. Adelaine, founder of Fuel to Flourish Workshops, Mindset Transformation. Mr. Dominic Doc Ligot, founder, CEO, and CTO of Suralytics. And Ms. Sarah Venturina, Chief Data Officer of Gcash. And now, may I call on the moderator for this fireside chat, the President of Ube Media Incorporated, and the Co-Vice Chair of the MAP NEXTGEN Committee, Ms. Donna May Lina.
Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to this fireside chat. And it helps to be in a family business so that people can clap for you. So a special shout out to my sister Sheila, who you will be listening to. And I would be so remiss this afternoon if I didn't acknowledge my parents there that were so fortunate, Mr. Bert and Sylvia Lina. Good afternoon. Magandang hapon po. And siya po talaga yung unang MAP member. He's the first MAP member. And shout out also to the NEXTGEN members who are here today. I'll do a special shout out to Natalia Pena here, who's also a second gen of the MAP NEXTGEN. So let's go dive deep. I know you saw in the poster that it was RJ Ledesma, so I'm DM Lina for this afternoon, moderating this AI and the workplace. So each of the panelists will be given 5 minutes to talk about that, and then I met Ella and Pauline earlier, and we'll have our chikahan, tita afternoon. Okay, so without further ado, we're very gender neutral here, so we can have Dominic as the only male in this panel to present the AI presentation.
Also the guy who didn't get the memo on the color scheme, as you noticed. Sige, 5 minutes, I don't have a slide. I actually just came out of another event, been in and out of AI events. And I guess the topic is about AI, workplace, well-being. So I'll just give you 3 stories. No? First story is, obviously I've been meeting a lot of people, industries about AI, and it's interesting. Some are positive, some are negative, and some are neutral. So I'll just run down the list, no, as far as I can remember. Positive, software developers. They don't really mind AI. Second, the arts and graphics people, oddly enough, they love it. It's just another tool to add to their arsenal in addition to Photoshop. So those are the positives. Neutral, interestingly, BPOs are neutral. Surprise, surprise. Some people are a little negative. Most are waiting and seeing what's going to happen, but generally they're open. Data scientists, oddly enough, they're not raving about AI, but they're not negative about it either. I guess deep inside they're also wondering maybe one day AI might do a lot of the work they do, but they're still okay. They're cool. No? Now the negatives. I love the negatives. Teachers, negative. Lawyers, negative. Doctors, negative. Cybersecurity people, as you've seen me, some of you might have seen me on TV about cybersecurity. Oh, negative. Engineers, negative. Public sector, negative. So I'm trying to figure out, this is not a scientific study by any means. There's an interesting trend. The people who are negative are ones who are very credentialist. To enter their field, you need a long CV. And they're worried whether their CV matters in the era of AI. That's anecdotal. Okay? That's story number 1. Story number 2, so broadly speaking, if you scan the news, there are lots of good news and bad news about AI. So I also found an interesting anecdotal pattern. I call it the 5 stages of grief about AI. No? Denial. Oh, AI is too dumb. It'll never do what I can do. Then anger. You mean I'm going to lose my job because of AI? And then bargaining. A lot of people are stuck here. Oh, we don't need to do AI yet. We need to clean our data first. Another excuse. Depression. one day we're really just going to work for the robots. And then acceptance. ChatGPT, please summarize this article in 5 bullets. Okay, the last anecdote. So you can't talk about AI without talking about AI ethics. It's a big, big word. And obviously, hearing from Cliff's manifesto, very impressed. I think we need to start thinking about ethics in kind of a different way. Most people think about ethics kind of in the legal sense. Certainly, compliance is important. But I'll give you an analogy. So one day, a woman arrives at court, talks to the judge. What are you doing here, sabi ng judge? Oh, I'm here to report my daughter. Why? She wants to get married. Okay, how old is your daughter? 18. And the judge says, okay, what's wrong with that? Oh, it's not safe for her to get married. And it's against my values for her to get married. Judge says, there's nothing I can do. The marrying age is 18. So notice, the problem isn't just about compliance, like the marrying age, compliant ka. But there's risks, and there's values. Now notice, in the AI conversations, the opposite. Talk a lot about values, about principles, about risks, like the Biden executive orders, all about risks. But there's no law about AI yet. And I think that's what we need to think about eventually. There has to be a law. But what law would that be? Okay, I'll end my piece there. I'm happy to have questions later.
Thank you, Dominic. So, where are you guys there? Are you on acceptance, anchor, and shout out to my Ube team, Ube Mia team, or in the arts and creative field? So one time I was asking my creative manager, wow, we need 5 copies that we're gonna present. Oh, Miss Donna, I'll give it to you in a while. Wow, 5 copies. Why? Thank you, AI, for doing that. So that's something that we've been adopting to, although my shout out, Nika. Yeah, they're millennials, but I grew up in watching The Terminator. So AI, something like that. So, but I'm leaning towards bargaining, denial. I'm almost in acceptance, I think.
Lapit na.
Malapit na. So
We're here for you.
Yes, thank you. Yes, we have a community here. So with that, we'll proceed with Pauline.
Okay. So I asked Cliff why I was included in this panel. I'm not an AI. I'm obviously beyond that generation that is, fully accepting of AI, nor am I an expert in well-being. So I decided I'll just tell you a story. For me to make what I think may be a relevant point in what we're talking about. So in early October, I was in my office working on my emails when a friend of mine called. She asked, Pauline, can you meet with the CEO of a multi-billion company that I'm coaching? He needs help. I said, sure, let's work it out. So the following week, I met him in his office. When I arrived, he politely asked me to take a seat. He started, the company has grown, but our success is our curse. Whoa, I was taken aback. So I asked, why? He began by describing who their founder was. He said, our 67-year-old founder and chairman grew the company, weathered through a decade of losses before things turned. His success model is to earn the trust of customers and tightly manage costs. We built our customer base by offering a platform where they can access products digitally. Majority of our clients are millennials and Gen Zers. They quickly adopted the digital way of availing the products, whereas the traditional way in this particular industry was through agents. I said, yep, my son is one of your clients, and how he uses your platform is something that I'm not familiar with. So I'm not one of your clients. Like other Gen Xers, I'm used to having a person talk to me instead of doing transactions online. But your company's success, I told him, really goes to show that whole industries can be transformed be made more relevant and accessible to generations younger than us? He replied, through the years, as our client base, and this CEO was a Gen Xer, he said, through the years, as our client base and product portfolio grew, my leadership team and I listened to our people and our customers. We needed to upgrade and enhance our systems. I had been bringing a transformation program centered on digitalization, but I will always be told, mahal yan, wag na tayong gumastos. Or in English, that's quite expensive, let's not spend. The success model of the chairman is to manage costs, keep the team lean, pay bare minimum salary, because after all, this was how he built the company, and he continues to call the shots. So the CEO continued, during the pandemic, our revenues grew 30%, but our system crashed. The clients regretted referring other customers to us. At the end of the meeting, our meeting, with his head shaking while looking out the window in his office, the problematic CEO said emphatically, change is imperative, otherwise we will become irrelevant. Why am I telling this story? While the next gen's paradigm of success is shifting, digitalization, holistic well-being, sustainability, and diversity, the elephant in the room is that the current operating environment still includes older generations, and their values, their success models, and therefore decision-making will impact the younger generation's ability to realize success and have fulfillment at work. So, next-gen leaders in the room, you know the power of digital technology. You know how it levels the playing fields, how it unlocks productivity, creativity, how AI can solve world problems. You fight for work-life integration and well-being because they're equally important values, but really intergenerational understanding, buy-in, and alignment is needed. So we need your help to proactively find ways to help the older generations improve their digital and well-being literacy, help us, including myself, I'm a Gen Xer, help us understand, accept, not go into denial, but move towards acceptance. You know, be comfortable with your values and vision of the future, because you're not just inheritors of a legacy, you are now the architects of our collective modern future. So lead the way. You have the power in your hands. So thank you, NextGen, for being the advocates of your values. Us older generations would gladly welcome and listen to this. So let's talk. Thank you.
Thank you, Pauline. And next up, who doesn't know Gcash? You've been under the rock. So let's call on Sarah to talk about her journey in AI and the workplace.
Okay. So, good afternoon. So, maybe before I start, can I ask who among us hasn't used ChatGPT yet? Hasn't used. So all of us have tried at least once, right? All right. Yes? So maybe most of us, if not all, are already familiar with things that we could do with AI, you know, for personal use, right? As an end user, as an end customer. Actually, if you think about it, our entire relationship with our handphone, with our mobile, right, is largely driven by AI. From the moment we try to unlock our phone with Face ID, right, or when we talk to Siri, to when we use Waze or Google Maps to try to beat traffic to work, or to the algorithms that would arrange, you know, the news or social media posts that we would see, would be shown first to us, are actually All of these are AI, right? And these are the kinds of AI that we use, then get greatly expanded when Gen AI became mainstream. So Gen AI, most popularly the ChatGPT use. And I'm sure, most of us have tried to use it, to be more articulate in emails, maybe in talks like this, right? And as we've seen, AI can be used to enhance communication between employees and managers, which could help to improve collaboration and productivity. So after that, we've got other good conversational chatbots across various topics and co-pilots to assist us in creating new content, right? For marketing or for software developers, for IT folks, helping us to create code, right? And for me personally, I'm not very creative. So I have this example here, are images, that I actually created using a Gen AI tool that could help sort of like explain the points that I want to convey how do we use AI in an enterprise setting, right? So apart from personal use at work, we see how the enterprise use of AI has allowed for automation, right, and streamlining of processes that allowed employees to be focused more on creative and strategic work. And because of that, they also find work that's more fulfilling, right? And then AI has also allowed us to maximize the value that we can create with data. And AI that can be used, is used to be able to help improve decision-making by providing employees with access to data and insights that would not have otherwise. And this access to data, for example, we even are able to extend to our partners, through some of the offerings that we've had in GCash as well. So when, Gen AI first made noise, it was something that us internally, we quickly checked, as most organizations did, and see how this can further enhance our efforts on knowing and serving our customers better, creating products and services that will be more meaningful for them, right? However, similar to what Doc Lee had said, right, AI sometimes can have some negative impacts on employee well-being as well. So I have here my next two images. I'm trying to show that beyond the obvious and direct beneficial impact of AI in organizations, there are a few more things we have to consider to take care of mental health and eventually the positive impact to our customers, right? So imagine, since AI can automate tasks that are currently done by humans, this actually could lead to some maybe feelings of, job insecurity, right? Or feeling of stress for the employees, as they may feel that there's a pressure to keep up with the latest AI technologies. Otherwise, they might lose their job, right? And for data and technical folks, we're actually called to drive the responsible and ethical use of AI. For us in our team, we call it so that we can all sleep better at night, knowing we didn't abuse anything, right? So for us in GCash, for example, it has been important for us to articulate our aspirations in pursuing ethical advocacy in the workplace. So we, for example, we have created our Good Data for Good Charter, which is the foundation for our goals to develop an ethical climate together with our partners, within the organization, not just within the data team, for us to be able to assure ourselves and our customers that we are using AI and its advantages in a manner that lessens the negative impact to human lives. We appreciate, the impact that we could have to our customers, so we're very careful around that. Our ethical advocacy also covers building virtue, so in a way, we're able to develop habits in using and working with AI, like, for example, being able to articulate how we come up with an output, right? Is it something that we use, did AI generate this output? Was it responsibly checked? Does it make sense? Is it safe to use a particular data point? So at the end of the day, AI is meant to help ease our tasks, right? But we as humans also have the accountability and responsibility to make the moral and fair choice that would contribute to our well-being at work as well as impact to our customers. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sarah. So that's AI for good. So it's not the Terminator. Sorry, that's the movie talaga. Pagka AI, it's like hasta la vista, baby. All right, shout out to the Gen X people here who've seen it. So thank you, Sarah, and my hair peg. Wow, ambition ko talaga mag-purple hair. Siya yung on-brand. Okay, on that note, let's proceed to Ella.
Thank you so much. Magandang hapon po sa inyong lahat. Super nagagalak po ako na nandito ako na makapag-share dahil super importante ang topic ng changing the success paradigm. And because before I became a mental health and well-being practitioner, I was a full-fledged workaholic. I subscribed to that old success paradigm of hard work, money, hard skills over soft skills, achievement, outcomes, deliverables. There's nothing wrong with that. However, when this is the sole object of our focus and what we measure ourselves against, what usually gets left behind and neglected is our personal welfare, well-being, and development and social impact. And so it's no wonder that we live in an age of overwhelm, overstimulation, high-functioning anxiety, depression. 60 to 70% of millennials and Gen Zs are reporting to feeling burnt out, which is no wonder why we have a low dip or impaired performance and productivity, a sense of low self-worth and confidence. We're not able to express our unique ideas and confidently innovate in the marketplace. And this is what happened to me. I had a nervous breakdown, a burnout, several medical interventions later, and my doctors forced me to prioritize my well-being. And it was the best thing that ever happened to me because I realized that my well-being is actually what drove my peak performance. And one of my mentors, Tony Robbins, he had an interview with Warren Buffett. I'll never forget. He said, in this ever-changing, ever-uncertain world where AI is meant to replace 50% of our jobs in the next 10 years, how do we adapt? What is the best business investment that we can make? And Warren Buffett said, the best business investment that we can make is in yourself, in your psychology, in your well-being. Because AI can be a great advantage and resource when we know how to delegate tasks, skills, not so AI can replace us, but so that AI can enable us to reallocate our higher skills and focus or resources towards higher executive functions like creativity, like innovation, our unique potential, talents, that special kind of genius that everyone has. Because we can learn as much hard skills, tools, and trainings as we want, but what really gets in the way of success and innovation and execution? What gets in the way? Tayo. Our human nature, our psychology, our emotions, how we deal with difficult thoughts, biases, mindsets, and emotions like procrastination, fear, self-doubt, lack of conviction, and resilience, our inability to employ our higher faculties like self-awareness, social emotional intelligence, creativity, teamwork, collaboration, all of these things that actually make up performance and well-being. And so there's an entire body of science, which is the neuroscience of positive psychology on this. And it is the science of what makes individuals, communities, businesses, organizations, countries, what makes them thrive in both personal and professional pursuits. And the science all points to the same things. These character strengths, these virtues and values that are also what enable us to experience everything that we need to flourish. Positivity, emotions, meaning and values that we bring into our relationships, into our teams, into how we achieve and engage in our personal and professional lives. This is what drives performance and success, but this is also what makes life worth living. And so my favorite groundbreaking study was published in the American Journal of Cardiology in 1995. By the Heart Math Institute, and they were talking about the direct link of our mental and emotional state with our performance, because our emotions directly affect our heart rate rhythms, our brain waves, our hormones, our immune system, through the vagus nerve, our metabolism, digestion, everything works in this one global functioning system. And so when we experience lower energetic frequencies or negative emotions like frustration and worry and fear, what happens? You can see on the upper graph there, this is your heart rate variability or what your nervous system looks like. You have impaired performance or what's called incoherence or imbalance, dysfunction, otherwise known as impaired performance, not just in your physical health, but in your mental faculties. Sino dito, pag nasa-stress, minsan na iniisip natin na bobo tayo. Sometimes when we're stressed, we feel like we're a little stupid, we're not as good as we think that we are. It's not about us. It really is just the state that we're in. And so if we can flip that and elevate our emotions and well-being, what happens? We experience coherence in the mind and body. There were several dozens of studies done in positive psychology wherein they would have subjects practice what's called positive psychological interventions, basically well-being practices that elevate your emotions. Things like meditating on self-awareness and acceptance and compassion, breath work, journaling on your vision and your values. They just did this for 2 weeks, and they had remarkable, significant results across all areas of mind-body performance. They had increased mental acuity, better focus, better creativity and innovation. They were able to have better pattern recognition, memory, articulate their ideas in a better way, come up with creative solutions to problems outside of the box. They were able to find more resilience and mental adaptability or flexibility when challenging moments arise so that they could self-regulate. They also experienced an increase in vitality. They had a change in their RNA gene expression. So what does that mean? They had better immune systems, more antibodies in their bloodstreams. They had better hormones and digestion. The list goes on. And this is why before I do anything that's important to me, before I start the day, before I talk, have an important conversation, before I have a presentation, I always ground and manage and uplift my mental and emotional well-being, because it largely affects and determines how we show up in the most important things and aspects to us. And so my invitation for us is to really prioritize our well-being by creating a community culture that models this, starting with our managers and our leaders. And as we mentioned, well-being is not just the absence of disease. Well-being is the presence of flourishing, the presence of thriving in both our personal and professional pursuits. This takes self-leadership. It takes time. It takes the ability for an individual to become self-aware mentally and emotionally, to be able to navigate and manage one's thoughts, ideas, opinions, mindsets, and emotions so that they can act and behave in alignment with your values, especially when challenging moments arise. This takes time, and it takes mentorship. And I'd like to invite you to work with us. I have a retreat center. There was supposed to be a photo up in the screen, but we've got a retreat center in Puerto Galera wherein we work with various different psychologists, scientists, doctors, behavioral health experts to really help teams leverage their well-being and their resilience so that they can thrive in both their personal and professional pursuits. So I hope that you'll contact me through the QR code and our LinkedIn, and I look forward to working with you so that we can invest in your success by investing in your well-being. Thanks, guys.
Thank you very much, Ella. So the time for the Q&A and Chika Chika. We met earlier. Let's go back to that last slide and that heart rate. And I want to get a feel of those who have that Apple Watch. This a very informal survey that GCash and Global probably know already because they have your data, but Sarah is a data privacy officer. Can we get a show of hands of who uses the Apple Watch? And can you see right now, are you relaxed?
Na-stress bigla sila.
Or na-stress kayo bigla? Kasi ako wala ako nun kasi ako mga malaman ko nasi-stress ako in the denial stage. No?
Ako traditional watch.
Traditional. So you can see right now how AI can actually help your well-being. Walang nag-raise ng hands. Who's calm right now? Karen? Yeah. Karen. Calm. And that's... All right, we have the NEXTGEN people helping Karen. How that is. So you mentioned, Ella, that you help in terms of well-being at work. So how does that help the community? Also, is there actual long-term data on how obviously there are cases, but all the executives in the room today, this is work, right? But we make sure that work integration, so you guys make sure to stay until cocktails. But can you share a little bit more on how it helps the community?
Absolutely. I think it's community first, and then well-being happens. It's impossible for us to reach these elevated states of mental and emotional well-being without community. Self-leadership is impossible without community. And so a lot of the work that we do with organizations or teams is that we model that sense of self-awareness and well-being, which means we do the work together. The managers and the leaders, they model vulnerability and psychological safety, wherein it's okay for people to express themselves honestly and not feel the fear of being judged or reprised for their opinions that are being shared. And so this takes a lot of vulnerability, a lot of authenticity, because for us to really build on well-being or all of these beautiful things like values, perseverance, it takes a level of self-awareness to know where we're at right now before we move to where we want to be. And sometimes the self-awareness part is hard because it means we have to face the parts of ourselves that we don't like to talk about, let alone show to other people. So having a team of managers and leaders who are forward about expressing their own vulnerabilities and being authentic with what they're struggling with, but also what they're moving towards, is what really inspires a team to do the same and to give themselves permission to be seen and to move forward.
Thank you, Ella. And related to that also, and the Pauline, Sarah, and Dominic can share also on well-being at work. How does AI now help, especially now that I think mental health, it's not stigmatized anymore, and how has AI helped that in terms of having more mental health programs, or that's more talked about, and how does it help improve productivity at work? So Pauline, we can start.
Actually, I will not talk about artificial intelligence. And again, as I said, I leave that to the experts. I'll talk about natural intelligence in a way, and how do we achieve well-being in the workplace. It does start with alignment of purpose, of values as a collective. You know, Ella talked about how to do that in teams, no? And it's very similar in terms of principles when you talk about the collective leadership team, and I'll move that now to work leadership environments, where the work that we do, in fact, in Acumen, is driving a lot of that alignment on purpose, and values, ambition, and from there, okay, let's talk about the hard stuff on the strategies. Why do I say this? Because we found that exercise of talking about the organization as a collective and the well-being of the organization, of the business, that transcends generations, especially as the first generation owners, you know, transfer now the reins to the second generation. There needs to be that conversation, honest conversation in terms of why does the company exist outside of ourselves, right? So now we're talking about the well-being of the company, why it exists, what is important for the company, and that's where collective or aligned values are important, and that's the only time that we discuss, okay, where do we want to take the business? But it does require the natural, I would say, natural intelligence of being open, aware, being vulnerable, because without that empathy, I would say even humility to accept, you know, where your current reality is, there won't be meaningful conversations among leaders, among first, second, third generations, among, you know, a diversity of individuals. And I think that's where we can harness, you know, really the intelligence and wisdom of the different generations. And that's the only time we go into, okay, what tools, what systems, what strategies, that we have the hardcore stuff, but we can't do that unless we have alignment on vision and values.
Thank you, Pauline. So natural intelligence, so the leaders here in the house, may trabaho pa tayong lahat.
Oh, definitely.
Correct?
We're not going to be
And
redundant.
so we're here to learn all the AI tools so that the human skills are still the most important skill. And, just looking back at what Cristo earlier said, lesson number 3, it's the people. The people are still the primary assets. They can also unplug the AI. So next is Sarah. Yes, please share.
So actually, taking off for what Pauline has mentioned, no, even if you utilize AI in an organization, right? So for example, in GCash, we're very, I guess we're, the industry itself in fintech, you know, and the energy is very young in the office. You know, it's very natural to adapt all of these new technologies, right? But I think end of the day, as with any technology, we cannot let it run away on its own, right? So those values, diba, they go hand in hand with the use of these tools, yes, right? So, for example, even if you use it for HR purposes, it's not like it will automate the consoling of someone, you know, if that someone has a mental issue, but it's to help prompt probably HR managers of someone that they have to prioritize to talk to, right? So, at the end of the day, and that's where all of this, well, some of the ethical concerns about the use of AI would come in if it's left alone, right? Because it could do some unintended consequences, because there's no human that's intervening, or whenever the AI would sometimes can also get it wrong, right? So I think it's not really a bad thing to humanize the use of AI, especially in the workplace where end of the day, well, tao pa naman yung nasa office, di ba? So they still need that humanness to the use of all of these technologies in the workplace as well. So.
And Dom, your inputs?
Well, nothing that they haven't already said, but maybe, sige, I'll give you a different take. Because I also call myself a technologist. And that doesn't mean I know technology 100%. But I'll give you a life hack, mga CEOs. No? Read up on the 19th century. There's a lot of lessons we can learn. I'll give you 3 lessons. Lesson number 1, panahon ni Rizal. Photography took 100 years to be considered art. And why? The portrait artists lobbied against it. Kasi sila yung may negosyo dati. And then suddenly a box that interprets light does what they do in 1 click. 100 years. Until finally they realized, hey, we can use the output of a photograph to do better portraits. So portrait artists learn to work with technology. Anecdote number 2, panahon ulit ni Rizal. Before cars, horses. Everyone had the horse. And horses produced horse manure. So the more horses you had, the more manure you had. They had to cancel the urban planning conference of 1894 because it was a problem that no one could solve. You can't engineer a horse to produce less crap. No? Sounds like business problems. Until one day, several people, in fact, simultaneously had the same insight. Why don't we just delete the horse and keep the carriage? And somehow the carriage should move by itself. It sounded very radical. But that's how the automobile industry came, no? And then later on, the automobile industry created its own crap. People were flying through windshields and dying. And they were resisting naman seat belts for a long time until someone made a study na if you had a seat belt, the fatality dropped by 90%. So there's always this love-hate relationship with technology. My best anecdote for that, yellow. Have you heard of ice? Ice is an industry that changed 3 times. First, ice industry, panahon ni Rizal, was a mining industry. You had to mine blocks of ice from lakes. They shipped it from Mexico. So yung mais con hielo sa Intramuros, galing sa Mexico. 40% would melt in the galleon by the time it arrived. And then, turn of the century, compressors were invented. The ice plant came about. And then now it became a manufacturing industry. And then after World War II, compressors got smaller and the Frigidaire came out. Your parents call it Frigidaire? It was the most popular refrigerator. General Electric and Frigid Air and Kelvinator. But here's the punchline. When the first ice plants appeared, the ice miners didn't believe it. Why would we manufacture ice when there's a lot of ice in nature? Only God should manufacture ice. And then when the Frigidaire appeared, the ice plant owners didn't believe it. Why would we want people to manufacture their own ice? We professionally manufacture ice in our plant. And then now, I don't know, there's still a few ice plants remaining, but you probably can buy ice in 7-Eleven in a Frigidaire or produce some of your own. So all I'm saying is the love-hate with AI, we're just repeating patterns in the past, and we should learn from the past. That's how I would say it.
Thank you, Dom. And now, do we have questions from the audience? We're taking in some questions. Okay, I'll proceed with one more question, and then we have a lot of things going on. Okay, we have one question. Yes, sir. Please state your name and what you do.
Hello, hi. My name is Beng Pangan. Recent retiree. And I'm a senior professional lecturer at De La Salle University. My question is actually for Dom. I know I'm supposed to be a traditional hater of AI, but I actually encourage it. Because, if my students can give me better papers, diba? I'm all for it, diba? Kasi I want to get their inputs and everything. My question is, where is this headed? Okay, and how soon? Because, I know there's a fear that us professors or teachers will be replaced by AI. I don't think so. Okay, I think that it will just enhance our teaching skills. But how fast is it going? Well, first of all, where is it going and how fast will it get there?
Panahon ni Rizal ulit. No, just kidding. No, the answer is it's headed where all technologies are headed. We're going to use it. And I think it was the World Economic Forum that said 23% of jobs won't go away. They'll just change. And there are some jobs that ought to be replaced. But specific to education, I'll give you two things. Number one, in some schools, bawal pa rin gamitin ng Wikipedia. You can't use Wikipedia as a source. But you can use the sources of Wikipedia as a source, funny enough, no? And then second, on the use of chatbots, I think the big issue really is students getting lazy and then using just a chatbot, like Professor Ben Tehanki of LaSalle is very vocal about this. And his issue was, if we're just gonna allow students to cheat, then we lose our role as educators. So that for me is a two-sided issue. Maybe essays are out of date as a teaching tool. Maybe they should really go away. But what will replace it as a teaching tool? No? So, like the Wikipedia question, and once upon a time, math professors wanted to ban calculators. I don't know if you were around that, talking about generations, no? And the internet was a tool. I think we should just examine why we do what we do. I'll give you a second, clearer example. For a long time, since the internet era came about, early 2000s, schools looked down on MOOCs. Online course, ew. Online credentials, ew. Nothing like a real paper, no, to credential to show your worth. And then suddenly the pandemic happened. And guess what? All the schools became a MOOC. They went online then. And then now, Coursera and schools work together. Suddenly no one remembers the era when Harvard actually looked down on Coursera. Now they're actually part of Coursera. So the odds are, I think AI will just become a natural part of everyone's lives. I think I'd be more worried about what Sarah and the others are talking about. What are the misuses of AI that we need to figure out? And I'll bring it back to ethics and law. It's back to data. Data talaga is they say data is the new oil. I think it's also the new pollution. You know, we have a lot of bad data out there. But remember, the word data only appears once in the Philippine Constitution, and it's in the context of research. And the word data doesn't even appear in the Universal Declaration of Human Rights. So suddenly we wake up and we're in a data-driven world, but everything we studied is suddenly out of date. And the only people that can change that is us.
Thank you. Thank you, Dom. And additional thoughts from Sarah?
Oh, wow. Do I have additional thoughts? Okay. So actually, I also teach part-time in UP. So I've had this experience of not really expecting my students to not use all of these tools available, right? Especially since, well, they're older. So I think it's a different context if it's my grade school son who will use ChatGPT to answer his homework, right? So I think what Doc Ligot mentioned, that this is something inevitable. And I remember I read somewhere where they said that it's not AI. You should not be worried about AI, but you should be worried about someone using AI if you're not using it, right? So it's something, and that could also mean that the way we teach, the way we learn is something that might need to change, given that all of the information is on the internet, right? What we should be sort of like helping the younger generation is that love for learning, that idea of continuous learning, because everything else, it's there, right? And we are preparing students for jobs that maybe are not yet even created, right? So there's really a need to shift, to adapt, and because really the jobs in the future will really also shift. And I don't even dare to guess how, I don't know whether I don't have much imagination, but for example, ChatGPT, I didn't imagine it. I was teaching conversational chat, but the very traditional way. So it was, it's something that is both exciting and I hope not scary. So sometimes also a bit scared, but pretty exciting. So I think it's the way we adopted new technologies from history that will also, be the same thing that we'll be doing as we find out these new things.
Thank you, Sarah. And Ella?
I like what you mentioned about AI being a tool, and it really is. The tool is not bad. It's how we use it. Like anything, how we use it is what determines the results. And I think, yes, there's a lot of benefits with AI. It's something we also need to understand rather than running away or being afraid of it, is embracing it by becoming more aware and understanding it. Not just understanding how to use it, but understanding what its effect on us as a human being is. There's so much research now that talks about how technology and these stimulation affects our dopamine receptors and our nervous system and our ability to actually experience true joy. And if we're not aware of this, if we don't practice the understanding these things in school, in our workplace, then you're handing a child an iPad when the child doesn't know how to self-regulate themselves. And before you know it, at the end of the day, we wonder, why do I feel so emotionally, mentally drained? We end up blaming ourselves rather than realizing my body isn't having a biophysical reaction to technology. And so I think as we enter this age, and I'm speaking not just to you, but to myself as well. My husband and I, we're in front of screens all the time, and so we need to make sure that we have what's called bumper rails. You know, in bowling, when you have bumper rails to make sure you don't fall in the gutter, we need to have bumper rails that safeguard our well-being as far as creating boundaries around our schedules, how much time we're being exposed to this, how are we using it, and make sure that we have active recovery scheduled throughout the day. This is something not just because of AI, but just general technology in general. Active recovery that allows our nervous system, our brainwaves, our heart rhythms, our mental emotional states to recover so that we're not being depleted, but we're actually working smarter and not harder, which is what AI is all about, right?
Thank you, Ella. So active recovery. So on your iPhones or phones, there's this thing called screen time. You can actually check that. Others are alarmed to actually say you need to take a break from your phone. And lastly, Pauline, for the last word.
When we did the Gen Z research, half of the Gen Z said that the current teaching methods are outdated. And I think that's where us, the collective, government and businesses need to really tackle. What is that issue? The issue is that there are a lot more tools now, very useful tools, but we still need to develop the 24 character strengths. Persistence, perseverance, communication skills, and all of that, that older generations' method of developing those are very different from the younger ones. For older generations, go to the library and research. Pumila ka. Look for the index cards, right? And until you've done that, hindi ka nag-research. For them, it's like a few seconds. So now, the professors and, the methods in even teaching or developing capabilities in companies still use outdated models. But there is still a need to develop competencies and skills. So how do we change now the model and the system to develop these skills and character traits? Because they are still needed as human beings to manage, current, very fast technological, change, but also have that agility of mindset to adopt, retool, reskill, so that resilience, so that people don't go, don't lose their jobs, but just do another kind of job. So I think that's the crux of the issue in society, especially now. So I've been trying to advocate and talk to schools about that Gen Z research that, hey, our methods they need something interactive. They need something that is that provides feedback immediately, something to ease the manual work so that they can use their time, their brain power to higher order thinking, but even, and not just a lot of information. So I just want to point that out, that is still something that hopefully we can collectively solve for.
So thank you, Pauline. We covered a lot, and please stay until cocktails. We can have conversations with Pauline, Ella, Sarah, and Doc Ligot, and we will be proceeding to the next part of the conference. Maraming salamat.
A round of applause, please, for Miss Fermin, Miss Lane, Mr. Ligot, Miss Venturina, and Miss Lena. Before we move on to our next segment, we'd like to remind everyone that the next generation has 3 parts: the conference, speed networking, and cocktails. So make sure to stick around till 9 p.m. to also get a chance to win in our raffle draw. Once again, you stand a chance to win 1 unit of Univest Personal 5-sheet cross-cut paper shredder from Pacific Sun Solutions Incorporated. 2 winners of 5 Enchanted Kingdom passes worth 5,500. An overnight stay in a deluxe room with a breakfast for 2 at Makati Shangri-La. A 2-night stay in the Grand Club room for 2 packs at the Grand Hyatt BGC. And our grand prize, a trip for 2 at Balisin Island Club for 3 days and 2 nights.
One more time. Celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate, celebrate and dance so free. One more time. Music's got me feeling so free. We're gonna celebrate, celebrate and dance so free.
For this part of our program, we will have the awarding ceremony for the 3rd MAP SGV NEXTGEN CEO Transformative Leadership Program. Let's get to know who the winner is. We would like to call on our moderator to lead the awarding ceremony. Please welcome the partner for consulting of SGV and Company, Ms. Kay Makaisa Peña.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm not Kay. I'm Rosana Fajardo from SGV, and I am the Program Director of the SGV MAP NEXTGEN CEO Transformative Leadership Program. For this afternoon, along with Kay Makaisa Peña, I will be sharing with you our program and recognizing the successful transformative NEXTGEN CEOs of 2023. Okay. So I want to start today's session with this quote. The secret of change is to focus all of your energy not on fighting the old, but on building the new. Humans by nature find it difficult to deal with changes. A part of our brain interprets change as a threat, and it releases hormones for fear, fight, or flight. I like this quote because it gives us something to ponder upon on how we might be more adaptive to changes or disruptions that happens at hyperspeed. In these uncertain times, the need for transformative leadership has never been more vital, and the way we lead ourselves and others define us. Transformative leadership brings together purpose, values, and the leadership behaviors into one. Purpose allows you to become better versions of yourself, enhancing your agility, curiosity, and well-being that helps navigate uncertain times by welcoming change and painting a compelling vision that rallies others to seek the answers and drive transformations. Being purpose-driven not only brings out the best in yourself, but also in others, as you inspire other people and your teams to make them feel that they belong. In a volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous environment, it is hard for us to predict what skills are important. But one thing we know is that we will need strong leaders that are quick, curious, collaborative, connected, and human. This is why in SGVEY, to help us achieve our ambition, we are building transformative leaders for transformative times. We describe them as purpose-led leaders that work on being the best version of themselves
and in turn creating a ripple effect in their teams. Bringing all of these together, we created a program that aims to focus on the new set of behaviors and value drivers that can help leaders of tomorrow respond better to the challenges and demands of the now, next, and beyond. We set across a 6-month period of face-to-face classes and a transformation project. We live out our purpose in SGV to nurture future leaders and enable businesses for a better Philippines. We start with leading with purpose, emphasizing the importance of knowing one's personal purpose, and where personal and corporate purpose meet, great things can happen. The second module focused on putting humans at center, where in an experience economy, leaders must prioritize the human experience across all facets of our business, customer, employees, and society as a whole. The third module highlights the importance of leveraging technology to inspire our business and to deploy it at speed to keep pace with ever-changing customer and employee expectations. And lastly, we cover innovation at scale to challenge typical sector boundaries and to create an innovation muscle within the organization that is ever innovating. At the end of the lecture sessions, each participant will submit a transformative idea where they will apply what they have learned in class, inspired by their purpose and looking at the 3 transformative value drivers to enable transformations in their organizations, sector, and society. Join me as I take you through a journey back in time as we look back at our first 2 batches and how the program has changed over the past 3 years. On our first year, we started 2021 with 15 high-potential NEXTGEN CEO members of the MAP. Please go ahead. As our pilot batch during the pandemic, we had little choice but to hold all 8 classes and coaching online. Blessed with highly engaged, insightful, and dedicated participants, the batch completed the program with projects that are both impactful to their companies and the often overlooked sectors of our society, such as the OFWs, stenographers, farmers, and small businesses. Our second batch started the program last May 2022, while we are slowly easing restrictions brought about by the pandemic. We took in 11 NEXTGEN leaders who were passionate about making a difference in an economy that is starting to recover, and while most of the sessions were still held online, we were able to have at least 1 face-to-face class with one of our guest speakers on innovation and a celebration party with the Batch 1 graduates. As part of the completion requirements of the program, each participant must submit a transformation project where they will apply what they have learned in class. Each project is inspired by their purpose and looking at the 3 transformative value drivers to enable transformation in their organizations, sector, and the society as a whole. Some of these projects are still live, if not completed, and to continue to positively impact Filipino lives each and every day. Each participant must present their ideas to a panel of esteemed judges from the MAP. Our previous transformation project judges include Mr. Joey Bermudez, 2009 MAP President, Mr. Edgar Chua, 2008 MAP President, and 2013 MAP Management Man of the Year, Mr. Eduardo Francisco, 2012 MAP President, Ms. Rizalina Mantaring, 2019 MAP President, Mr. Simon Paterno, 2005 MAP President, and Ms. Marife Zamora, 2017 MAP President. Which brings us to this year's batch of NEXTGEN CEOs. This year's batch had the benefit of having face-to-face classes at our SGV Development Center and the SGV Museum. This year's batch of 13 NEXTGEN leaders further enriched the program with timely, active, and insightful participation. While we usually hold each class for only 2 hours, it is quite unusual for us to end the sessions on time, as everyone was more than happy to contribute to the discussion or help a colleague in an actual leadership challenge that they are currently facing. As we formally end this year's program, we are grateful and honored for the opportunity to be part of their leadership journey. Not only did this year's batch learn from our guest speakers, they also had the opportunity to work with SGV and MAP coaches to help them in their transformation project. More importantly, to quote Mr. Neil Ko, one of our participants this year, they also had 3 Fs: friends, food, and fun. Yes. As we now head to recognizing the NEXTGEN CEO Transformative Leaders of 2023, I would like to take this opportunity to thank the MAP for the collaboration and the partnership in this program. Special thanks to President Dick Du Baladad, Mr. Donald Lim, Governor in charge of the NEXTGEN Committee, Mr. Cliff Ayala, Chair of the NEXTGEN Committee, Ms. Donna May Lina, and Ms. Deliza Ridoloso, NEXTGEN co-vice chairs. I would also like to extend our thanks to Attorney Francis Lim, 2020 MAP President, who partnered with SGV during the program's infancy. Thank you as well to the participants for the privilege and honor to be part of this very important program. As we look forward to the next year, we hope that we can once again work more closely together to continuously create programs for our next generation of leaders. I now pass you on to Kay, who will introduce our 2023 NEXTGEN CEO Transformative Leaders.
Thank you, Ms. Rosana, and I'll ask you to come up the stage later on. But I'm Kay Macaisa Peña, and I am the principal of the class. And I hope I made their lives easier. As we bring this year's Transformative Leadership Program to a close, I'd like to first of all thank the participants who made it easy on us and actually more meaningful as we continue to reshape the program to make it more meaningful for the participants. So each of the NEXTGEN CEO that we had this year sparked ideas that really brought to life our transformative leadership model. And to be very honest with all of you, as we were going through the judging process, it was very difficult for our judges to select the outstanding transformative idea. So maybe ask in a while our participants to join us on the stage. But before we do that, I'd like to ask Mr. Singh or Mr. Sana Fajardo to come up the stage, along with President Dick Du Baladad, to be represented by Ms. Karen Batong-Bakal. We will also ask Mr. Cliff Ayala, the chair of the NEXTGEN Committee, Ms. Donna Lina, and Ms. Deliza Ridoloso, the co-vice chair of the NEXTGEN Committee, to please come up the stage as we recognize our NEXTGEN leaders. Okay? So as we call your name, please go up the stage to receive a certificate of appreciation and completion of the program. The certificate reads, The certificate of appreciation is presented to the participant for completing the SGV MEP NEXTGEN CEO Transformative Leadership Program held from June to November 2023. Signed on behalf of MEP by Attorney Benedicta Dubaladad, President of the Management Association of the Philippines, Mr. John Clifford Yala, MEP NEXTGEN Committee, and signed on behalf of SGV, Mr. Wilson P. Tan, the Chairman and Managing Partner, Ms. Rosana Fajardo, Consulting Leader and ASEAN Business Consulting Leader. May I also ask Mr. Wilson Tan to please come up the stage to also congratulate this year's transformative leaders. And so it is my honor to introduce to all of you the NEXTGEN CEO Transformative Leaders of 2023. So please, let's give them a round of applause and join me in congratulating the following. If we can have the slides up, please. Our first participant is Mr. Efren Caringal, who unfortunately won't be able to join us in person as he is currently in Spain. But join me in congratulating Attorney Jo Christine K. Celera, Regulatory Affairs Director, East Zone of Manila Water Company. She had to rush, literally rush, to get to the program today. May I also call on Mr. Neil Carlson, Neil Co., General Manager of Park Mall. He had to fly all the way from Cebu for every program and classroom session that we had. May I also call on Ms. Maika Del Carmen, President of Noasis Corporation. I'd also like to ask Mr. Don Gamboa, the President and CEO of White Cloak Technologies, Inc., to please come up the stage to receive your certificate. Next is Mr. Jean Atilano Gangan, Director for Research and Talent Intelligence Practice, ZMG Ward Howell, Inc. Next is Mr. Roland Marco Garcia, Founding CEO and Managing Partner of Embiggen Group. Next is Mr. Eduardo Luis Luy, President and COO of Macro Asia Corporation. May I call on Mr. Sergio Oñate Ramos III, President and co-founder of PCI Innovations Tech Center, Inc. Next is Mr. Elvin Ivan Uy, Executive Director of PBSP. Unfortunately, Mr. Al Douglas Villaos is not here with us today, but he has also completed the program. And of course, the last two, we have Mr. Juan Antonio Ja Villaluz, President of Southern College. And lastly, Ms. Cristina Vivas, Head of Consumer Goods and Retail, Food Service, Healthcare, and Pharmaceuticals Division of ZMG Ward Howell Incorporated. Congratulations to this year's Transformative Leaders. We are grateful to be part of your transformative leadership journey, and we look forward to the impact that you will make in the country and in the world. So let's pause for a quick group photo if we can fit in. Thank you very much. May I ask the participants to please head back to your seats as we prepare for the next part of the awarding ceremony. May I request Ms. Rosing, Mr. Wilson Tan, Cliff Iala, Deliza Ridoloso, and Donna Lina to stay on the stage. And Ms. Karen Batungbakal, of course. Sorry. And now, we will proceed with our Special Award and Outstanding Transformative Leadership Award. So these are the awards that we give to the class for completing the program in an excellent manner. And in the past, we have recognized 3 outstanding individuals for their exemplary transformation projects who were able to apply the 4 key themes, as mentioned earlier, of the Transformative Leadership Program. We have Mr. Chito Maniago and his Bayanihan, championing our heroes, the Filipino farmers last 2021. Attorney Marian Joanna Kopua as a Purpose Leadership Awardee for her Legal Practitioners to Entrepreneurs Project, and Mr. RJ Ledesma for his Mercato Scale-Up Project. Before we announce our awardees this year, I would like to acknowledge the coaches who took this year our coaches this year for taking the time to help our participants in their transformation project. We have Ms. Maria Esther Foliosca Bautista, Ms. Cherise Rosalyn Cruz, Ms. Rosana Fajardo, Ms. Marnelli Eileen Fulion, Ms. Donna May Lina, Ms. Maricar Castillo Reyes, Ms. Deliza Ridoloso, Mr. Lee Carlo Abadia, Mr. Warren Bituin, Mr. Ryan Gilbert Chua, and Mr. Janry Manlapas. Thank you very much for helping us guide our students this batch. I would also like to call on the stage Mr. Chito Maniago as one of the judges who helped select our outstanding transformative leader this year. So it's actually full circle for him. So as an awardee last 2021, he's now part of the panel of judges for this year. Along with Mr. Maniago, we have Mr. Ed Francisco, MAP past president and president of BDO Capital and Investment Corporation, and Ms. Marife Zamora, the MAP past president and board director of PLDT. Okay, so to our 2023 batch, as we call your name, it's like Miss Universe, no? Please proceed to the stage so that we can congratulate you. We will be sharing with you a plaque and a certification for the award that you'll be getting this afternoon after the event itself. So are you all excited to hear who are our awardees this year? Everyone excited? Our first special awardee is Attorney Jo Christine K. Celera for her project Scale Up. Scale Up aims to effectively create a culture of responsible sanitation management by engaging government entities, both national and local, through community involvement and by maximizing the use of available resources and technology. With this, there is also an aim to upskill the workforce with the necessary skills as we innovate and power through the speedily changing and digitized business environment. Congratulations, Attorney K. Celera. Our next special awardee is Mr. Roland Marco Garcia of Embiggen Group for his project Embiggen Ventures, which aims to harness the power of artificial intelligence use in driving new disruptive business. Roland, please come up the stage. And it also means that Embiggen will build its own AI-first ventures via Venture Studio. So congratulations, Roland and Kay, for getting the special award for this year. So let's pause for a quick photo with the special awardees. Thank you, Kay and Roland, again, and congratulations for getting the special award. And of course, this program will not be complete without giving the highest honor and award for this year's batch. The Outstanding Transformative Leadership Award is given to Mr. Don Gamboa of White Cloak Technologies for his project Unang Paglinang. Unang Paglinang aims to provide an avenue for young, bright minds to leapfrog societal barriers and grasp a better, brighter, and more secure future while also contributing to the country's rise as a go-to destination for IT talent. Congratulations, Don, Kay, and Roland, for being our awardees this year. Let's all give them again a round of applause for this achievement. Thank you. Don, may I ask you to say a few words? I don't think he heard me. Don, can you say a few words on behalf of the class?
First of all, I did not expect to win an award tonight. But I just wanted to say, when I got the invitation early this year, I was quite hesitant because I had so much on my plate. And it requires like a few hours per week for at least 6 months. But I came across this quote that says, "The magic that you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding." And so I joined, and now I got the magic. So, and actually this morning, I was not feeling very well. And I had an expo also. So I was asking my classmates if it's required. So, but an inner voice told me again, the magic that you're looking for is in the work you're avoiding. And so true enough, I got the magic tonight. So I guess, thank you for the magic of all the learnings and insights that we got from the program, the perspectives that we gained from each other, and the bond that we shared for more than 6 months. So congratulations for this very successful program. And again, thank you.
And that wraps up our 2023 Transformative Leadership Program. I'd like to leave you with a video to recap all of the activities that we had for this year. Thank you, everyone, and enjoy the rest of the conference.
Thank you, Rosing and Kay. And congratulations to the winner of the third MAP SGV NextGen CEO Transformative Leadership Program. Our next session is a fireside chat on succession. Where are you taking us? Featuring next generation family conglomerates. May I request our panelists to come up on stage as their names are called. Ms. Ana Maria A. Delgado, Institutional Banking Head, Chief Customer Experience Officer, and Chief Digital Channels Officer of Union Bank of the Philippines. Mr. Alvin Lau, President and CEO of D&L Industries Incorporated. Ms. Sheila Lina, Chief Transformation Officer of Air 21 Holdings Incorporated. Ms. Isabel Therese G. Yap, Executive Director and Vice President of East West Banking Corporation. And Ms. Mariana Beatriz E. Zobel de Ayala, Senior Vice President and Head of Leasing and Hospitality Group of Ayala Land Incorporated. And now, may I call on the moderator for this fireside chat, a member of the MAP NextGen Committee and the President and CEO of Advanced Solutions. Please welcome Mr. Vijay Manuel.
Good afternoon, everyone. Are you guys still awake? You guys better be, because this is a dynamic set of panelists that we have this afternoon. Okay, without further ado, and because I was instructed to do this, we're not going to go through each of these people's bios, right? Instead, please, if you want to learn more about them, we can look at we can scan the QR codes that's on in front of you, if that's fair, right? What we're going to do next would be to call each of our panelists, we're going to do this alphabetically with Anna, right? And have them do their presentation for about 5 minutes, and until Mariana, the last person to be given the 5 minutes. Then we're gonna do the Q&A, okay? So hopefully you guys are ready for this, because I'm really ready for this and super excited to hear their stories. Anna, please.
Sure. So yeah, I had some slides. They can be pulled up, but I'll get started anyway. I thought to make this 5 minutes something that would be a little bit more up close and personal with the family, because you can read about the business online, and so I thought I'd have a little bit more fun. If you can move it to the next slide, please. So Aboitiz and Company, which is the private holding company, was founded in 1920 by the gentleman on your left in the picture, Ramon Aboitiz, who is my great-grandfather, and that's his brother beside him, who worked with him and was his trusted partner in the business for many years. The business started in Leyte, in that building that you see on screen, no? Next slide, please. Interestingly enough, they say that normally family businesses start to fail in second and third generation. We had a moment of almost failure in the first generation when the First World War struck. And our company actually went bankrupt. And the reason I'm telling you this story is because the way my great-grandfather handled it formed a big part of who we are today. So he was at a crossroads at that point in time. He had a lot of debt, and he was in Spain at the time and was asked to come back to the Philippines, and had to make a decision. Do I just let it go, not pay my debts, and take what I have and say that's it, that's the end of our business, or do I honor the debt and make sure we go on? And he made that very decision. He said that my word and my honor at this point are all that I have, and that's important that I keep that intact. And so he decided to reestablish the business, restart it, and pay off the debt to family, friends, and banks at the time, and moved on to the next stage of the business. But that sense of humility, having established a business, it going under, and then making the decision to honor your word and reputation, has stuck with us and is a very important piece of who we are today. Next click, please. You can go ahead and click all on the slide. So the business has grown. For some of you may not know, we were in the ice business at one point, in the sugar, even in sari-sari stores. We sold all kinds of products. So we were very entrepreneurial at that point in time, leading up into the 1980s and 90s, when new leadership came over, and we were, before that we were very much family-led and family-run, and then we had to professionalize, right? So all the way leading up to the IPO, which was led by John Ramon, who is my uncle, the next gen, actually 2 generations away from Ramon. And he made the decision to hire professionals. So this is another, I guess, life lesson we've learned, that you know, although we own the business primarily, and now we're diversified and public, so we don't own it entirely, we need to seek outside counsel to help us. And so we hired consultants both for the business, who helped us decide to focus on key businesses and sell off some others, but also consultants to help us think through generational problems that we were already, and challenges that we were encountering. So how do we now structure the family side and the ownership side of the business to help us through? So that was something that John Ramon did at that point in time. We went through a phase of expansion, particularly in our power businesses, adding more aspects of professionalism, going through quality assurance, risk management, enterprise risk management, sustainability, CSR, etc. And today we are in a phase that actually is very exciting to me, because it is challenging also who we were before. If you asked us our ownership preference and model in the past, we would have said we definitely need to be majority owners all the time. That's not a question. And if we could own it wholly outside of the publicly listed companies, that would be the case. And we needed to know how to run it. And you'll see through the different transactions, moves we've made, and strategic decisions we've made in the last few years, that model has changed. We sold off a big chunk of our power business to JERA, because we knew that we needed, well, one, we needed to raise capital for other businesses we wanted to get into, but also because they brought in expertise with regards to renewable power, which is something we can maybe talk about later in terms of sustainability. And so all of these other transactions here, you'll see, in some cases, like Coke, we will not be majority owners. So we changed our view around that. Next slide, please. So today we are 5th gen. I am 5th gen in the family business. That's me, my cousins, some uncles on screen having some fun. But on the far left, I guess you'll see a gentleman who is a consultant that we brought in again to help us understand the challenges we are facing in this transition through generations and work on it. And last slide, I wanted to end with this thought ender or thought starter, maybe to the conversation, that this is a prevailing mantra that we believe in, that we may have come a long way, but we're only at the beginning. And this helps us to, one, keep our egos in check. Although we've come a long way, it's important that we remain humble and know that we can be disrupted anytime, and therefore we need to think like it's day one. And helps us to also innovate and continually question the model that we need to have moving forward. So there you go.
Wow, thank you so much, Ana Delgado. So she is, I forgot to mention this earlier, she's Chief Digital Channels, Customer Experience, and Institutional Banking Head at Union Bank. Amazing. So thank you very much for taking us through the family history and sharing a little bit about the perspective on ownership. I found that very interesting. In any case, up next is Mr. Alvin Lau of DNL, the thorn on the other side of these ladies. Thank you. Alvin, please.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. So yeah, my privilege to be with you all today. So I'm going to start off with how our business started. So 1963, we were started. Sorry, wala pa yung slides. Anyway, 1963, our business started by my dad and uncle, Dean and Leon. So that's where the name of D and L came from. But they actually had 3 younger brothers. So no girls because they don't have any sisters. So 5 brothers started the business. And the three oldest brothers are chemical engineers. So that is why we have that common theme of chemistry. So we're known as a manufacturer of specialty chemicals and specialty food ingredients. So I joined the business in 1997, and I remember one of the first projects I was involved with was how to restructure ownership of the company. Back then, the shares were owned by the brothers. The shares of our different companies were all owned by the individual brothers. And their thought was, what happens when we're not around anymore? So there's that common saying of among family businesses, diba? First generation builds it, second grows it, third sells or destroys it. So every Friday at 8 a.m., we would meet with my dad, my uncles, lawyers. We'd meet for 2 hours at least. And after 2 years of discussions, options, of what we could do, this is what we came up with. So we would form trusts to own our assets, our shares of the companies. And then to improve governance, because we viewed governance as a key. So back then, actually, we didn't use the word governance because it wasn't, the word governance wasn't used back then how it's used today. So it was more about improving transparency. It was more about being accountable to family members. So we viewed listing on the stock exchange as a key in terms of how we would be transparent and effectively implement governance for the companies, for the benefit of the whole family. Since then, we've actually listed on the stock exchange 3 times. We've even issued bonds. We, of course, brought on independent directors, have the other things like disclosure of information. I put the word there, real auditors, because diba, you can always get an auditor, but are they really looking at the real numbers? So in our case, we got PwC, and then, of course, investor relations. We had to have a functioning investor relation division in our company. So I had to encapsulate everything in 5 minutes. This is my last slide. Right now, for us as second gen, the thrust is really not just growing the business, but also how to prepare the third generation and future generations to continue running the business, or at least own, manage, and be custodians of the business. So our areas of focus, primarily, it revolves around the values and the culture of the family, as well as of the company, and improving things like governance, being ready to change, and also making sure family members are well equipped, having a risk mindset, so not necessarily being not being too conservative, but not being too aggressive either, having that right balance. Very important to continue to have trust and respect, not just of family members, but peers, customers, suppliers, and of course, employees. And then finally, giving back. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Alvin. You know, it's really interesting that you said real auditors, because I used to do a lot of activities looking into different companies that we were thinking of investing in or what in my previous job. And we always said that there's always a set of second books. So thank you for sharing that with us, how you guys have changed. Anyway, so thank you, Alvin. So next is, after Mr. Lau, is Sheila Lina of Air 21 Holdings, Chief Transformation Officer. Sheila?
Good evening, everyone. I'm Sheila Lina from Air 21 Holdings. I'm glad to be here. So my family business is mainly in logistics. My parents are over there. Hi, Mom. Hi, Dad. 44 years ago, the 2 lovely people over there who obviously brought me to life also brought a company called Air Freight 2100 to life. And about last year, we sold a majority stake in Air 21 and some of our other companies in logistics and waste management to Ayala Corporation through its AC Logistics arm. Hi, Mariana. So my current role is Chief Transformation Officer, which is a fancy title, which is basically to make sure that the transition from our family to their family is nice and everybody gets along and we play by the rules, by the new rules. So in the book of Matthew chapter 9, verse 17, Jesus talks about putting new wine into fresh wineskins. And that imagery is what I'd like to use because I think it's quite apt in the context of managing the transition between two generations. So my father, love you pa, being the old wine who built his group of companies based on his own strengths, his interests, and the market conditions of his time. And his companies were the old wineskins that served their purpose beautifully for the old wine. And so our family enjoyed the success of my father's labor. I suppose me and my sister over there are the new wine in this story. And the new wineskin is our partnership with the Ayala Corporation. For our businesses to grow and flourish, we needed a new container to fit our generation's strengths, interests, and the market conditions of our time. We were blessed to find a partner in Ayala who shared our vision in being of service to others and our values, I've switched that. Our values in being of service to others and our vision for better logistics and environmental sustainability for the region. We are so eager to learn from a family who's managed multiple transitions across generations and hope to contribute meaningfully to our shared future together. One of the big shifts for us is aligning with the corporate governance structure of the Ayala Group. In the past, my father governed by fiat. Love you, pa. I think most generation entrepreneurs are the same. Now, we have the requisite board meetings with a script and everything. So I have to say, Mr. Chairman, I move that the matters presented be approved. And somebody has to say, I second the motion, Mr. Chairman. Back in our group, that never happens. As long as my dad says that's fine, basically everything is approved. Now that's not the case. So most of these things are not difficult to adjust to, just different, right? And we just need to adjust to the new circumstances that we find ourselves in. Of course, our family's path is just one way, one particular kind of new wineskin. There are many options for those of you who might be in a similar transition point. Just like Alvin, you could do an IPO. Or maybe somebody here says, F it, right? Sell it 100%. All of these are valid choices. You could even acquire new businesses, right? Like what happened with what you guys did, or start new businesses from scratch too, right? There's no rules in this. Just because somebody did it one way does not mean you have to do it the same way, right? Because whatever you choose, my main point is that the container or structure of your business would have to evolve somehow from where it currently is. Whatever got you here is not necessarily the best vessel to take you where you want to go. Your new wineskin should be suited to your specific strengths, interests, and the market conditions of your time. And of course, today we talked about AI, all this like crazy stuff, right? Like, who knows where we're all gonna be next year, right? Like, if Skynet actually comes true, like, what kind of world are we gonna be living in? Seriously. So, if you don't change the wineskins, right? If you stay with your old wineskins, there is a strong possibility that the skins will burst, the wine runs out, and the skins are lost, just as scripture says. So old wine, old wineskins. New wine, new wineskins. Now, navigating this transition is not for the faint of heart. It requires tremendous courage and patience from all parties involved. There's a lot of emotional attachments to various parts of the old wineskin that needs to be addressed with gentleness, compassion, and understanding. To be honest, that's one of the things that I'm going through right now. We're 1 year in post-acquisition, so it's too early to say if this transition is successful, but I'm committed to doing my best with a new wineskin and surrender to God whatever the outcomes may be. Anyway, I hope what I shared was helpful, and I wish everyone on this panel and in the audience all the best. Thank you.
Wow, thank you so much, Sheila. You know, so much positivity in your message. Thank you. Okay, now we have Ms. Isabel Therese Yap of East West Banking Corporation. She's Executive Director and Vice President. I can't wait to hear this because I didn't realize their Conglo is into so many things.
Thank you once again, VJ. So good evening, everyone. So I'm Isabel, or Isa. You can call me Isa. Our family business is actually the Philinvest Development Corporation group of companies. But we prepared a short video, but I wanted to also share a little bit of a background on the family. The business was founded in 1955. So in 2 years, it'll be about 70 years old. My grandparents were actually the tag team that founded the corporation. So they did it as a partnership. And we are now heading into what I hear, dreaded transition into the third generation. So I'm actually a third generation member of the family business. Now, in terms of numbers, we are 11 family members working in the business, 3 second gen, and 8 third gen. But we are actually a dwindling percentage in the about 10,000 employees that we have in the corporation. So we're really moving and shifting into what I think many mentioned, a more professionalized environment and organization that we want to build. You know, the Philinvest Group also believes in 3 things. The first is really being kind of purposeful in being able to help Filipinos achieve their dreams. The second is that, you know, we always want to keep the family values of being an entrepreneurial and having entrepreneurship mindsets for opportunities. And last is that it's always a shared benefit. We talk a lot about sustainability. We talk a lot about communities that we want to help. And at Philinvest, we also look at how we can have shared benefit for all the stakeholders that we have at the business. And so I also just wanted to share a quick video to show you how some of our subsidiaries are able to really show those 3 values today. Thank you so much.
It's the reason you wake up every morning. That dream. A space to call your own. A place to make your mark. The dreams of real people. This same dream is how our journey began. An enterprise driven by a simple dream. A dream no different from yours. Growing and prospering. And carried on by the next generation of leaders. These dreams have become the building blocks of the Philinvest Group of companies. Today, we're bringing sustainable communities within reach of every Filipino. Creating that fine balance of family and fun, technology and nature, business and leisure, economic and personal pursuits. Never losing sight of what brought us here. Your dream of a home for the people you love. Your dream to pursue your passions. Your dream to grow an enterprise. And as we've enabled you to fulfill your dreams, we've spanned industries to make even bigger dreams real. A community's dream of prosperity. A nation's dream of progress. And a generation's dream of a world that thrives into the future. The dreams we're making real with you today.
Thank you so much, Isa. That was great. Making dreams real. You know what's making me really happy about this is that in a 5-minute or 4-minute video, I can get what I usually had to read 40 pages in an annual report, right? I mean, that's amazing. Anyway, so thank you. And last but not the least, I'd like to introduce Mariana to you. Mariana, I've known God since about 10, 11 years. At one point during my stint in Globe. But Mariana, please, thank you. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, VJ.
Hello.
Hello. Thank you. Thank you so much, VJ. I'm going to do as Isabel did as well and share a quick video as a mood setter. Then I look forward to sharing a little bit about my own journey and that of my family's.
When we measure success, we often ask ourselves, have we reached our goals? Have we exceeded our expectations? But most importantly, we ask, have we contributed to the greater good? Greater good begins when we see potential and nurture it. When we strive to create innovations that outlast generations. When we dream not just for ourselves, but for the entire nation. Greater good is the coming together of passion, service, and compassion. Passion to protect the environment. Commitment to serve the country. Compassion for our fellow man. In times of crisis, we respond with agility to protect our ecosystem. We rebuild communities and find the most sustainable solution to ensure no one is left behind. Greater good is not the work of a single individual. It is nurtured by different voices and ideas, turned into action by collective efforts. It includes you, your loved ones, your community, the whole of society. It is a choice behind every decision we make, every action we take. It's the reason why we're here, still standing, stronger, and more determined to advance the cause. So, when we measure success, we don't really look at our own achievements. Instead, we look at the pain points we addressed, the lives we improved, the future we secured. Today, and in the centuries to come, let's keep this tradition alive. Whatever we do, let's do it for the greater good.
That came out much more dramatic in big form, so apologies for that. But I guess, I represent the 8th generation of our family business, Ayala Corporation. Next year, we turn 190 years old, and when we reflect on, there's been a lot of luck along those years, but when we reflect on maybe what we feel has allowed us that consistency and continuity, we do feel that part of it is because we ground ourselves on, or we align ourselves with what we think would be good for the country. And so, we use that as a reflection point as to, if it's going to be good for us, it should be good for the country, and vice versa. And that's, I guess, one element that's been important for us, and we feel has been passed down through generations. Another aspect that I feel is I guess, characteristic of Ayala when I reflect on kind of who we are, the values, and how we think about succession, is seen really in action. Last year, we actually turned over the president and CEO position of Ayala to the first non-family member, a fellow called Bong Conseng, who many of you might know. And I think it's, illustrative of the fact that we as a family believe that our gene pool, our one gene pool, might not necessarily cover for all of the skills that are necessary to be able to take the businesses that we participate in forward. And that, is, I think, I've learned from that humility. In my case, as eighth generation, I'm one of 3 family members that work for the company, and my father and my uncle represented the 7th generation, and they've recently turned over their responsibilities from day-to-day management to governance roles on our boards. And to be honest, part of the decision to professionalize was really out of need. At the time, my father and my brother and his brother didn't have access to family members who were interested or equipped to be able to run the business. And so out of that need came kind of a real desire to professionalize and empower, let's say, specialized, experienced individuals to be able to run the different businesses we participate in. Actually, we haven't had when we were reflecting on it, we've never had a business unit CEO in the last 3 generations that have come from the family. And coincidentally, the first happened this year when my brother was named CEO of AC Motors. So we thought it was actually a funny coincidence when we reflected on our journey in terms of succession and professionalizing. In my case, I actually have been with Ayala for 10 years now, since I moved back from the US after spending a few years studying and working there. I currently serve as the head of our leasing and hospitality business of Ayala Land. And so we manage about 2 million square meters in mall space around the country, about 1 million square meters in office space. And we also have a hotel portfolio of about 4,500 rooms around the country, which we're really excited to grow. And I guess my personal belief and personal value is that change is constant. So as I was seeing Anna's quote that she left us with, I took a photo of it because I think it so perfectly describes the world that I think we live in today. And I really hope that we shouldn't rely on the idea of the past and our past success, and kind of every day is a new day, and especially in the world we live in, where consumers are super empowered, as they should be, and there's a lot of choice. I think it's important that we continue to hustle and be grounded on what will drive consumer choice and what will drive customers to choose and love us. And so that's what gets me up out of bed every day, that challenge. And I tell my team, I share with my team my personal view, which is how do we get from like to love? How do we get from people, feeling good about Ayala, like, oh, they're a good company, they do well, to really saying, I love what Ayala creates, and I love the experiences and products that Ayala puts forward. And so that's my personal challenge to myself. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mariana. One of the key takeaways there for me is that you need to keep hustling, right? Is what you said. It's very interesting because for someone who's 8th generation now, with the business, you could actually just kick back, right? But you're not, which is really fascinating for me. In any case, now we can have the Q&A. I'll start it off. if it's okay. And if you have any questions that you'd like to address any of our panelists, you could please just go up to the mic. So the first question I'd like to ask actually would be for Anna. If you could share your journey in taking on a role in the company, of the different things that you guys do, why the particular role and, of course, institution, than the role that you're in right now?
So my journey was by accident into the family business. I was an art graduate in college. I did painting and art history. I had no interest in accounting, finance, or any of the sort. But when I came home to the Philippines after studying abroad in 2003, the art scene here was not as developed as it is today. I might have had a very different career had I moved home today. And so I basically said, where am I going to work? That wasn't a question. I was always sure I was going to have a career. I just didn't know where. So I interned in McCann Erickson. I did a stint in the Peninsula. And I said, yeah, they're interesting, but I'm not 100% sure. So then my dad said, well, why don't you talk to Edwin in the bank? Edwin is our current CEO. At that time, he was head of the retail bank. And I said, why? Well, just talk to him. He might have something for you. I said, okay. So I went and talked to Edwin, thinking, how the heck am I going to explain my art background to him? He's going to ask me questions about banking. How's this going to work out? And it turned out the whole hour I spent with him, we were talking about art. So Edwin is a big art collector. He knows a lot about art. He knew that I was an art graduate, and he's great with people. And so he knew that to break the ice with me, we could talk about art. And I'm sure he was assessing and seeing my thought process then. And he said, look, no commitments. Why don't you try and start in an internship, start in a product management position, see where you go. So I started in the bank that way, not expecting that I would actually find my calling and find a passion in banking. And that's where I am today.
Wow, thank you. That sounds great, actually. Art and then customer experience today, right? It actually makes a lot of sense. In any case, if there are no questions from the floor, I'll keep on asking, because I have like a dozen questions for these guys, right? None? Okay, sige, I'm gonna address this too. Actually, Isa, sige, as a young leader in an established conglomerate, how do you balance a traditional business value with the need to innovate and adapt rapidly to changing market dynamics?
Yeah, so I think, well, when I showed the video, there were some, I guess what you would call maybe more traditional values, but at least I don't necessarily feel that it conflicts really with, what you would mention as more innovative or more, recent values that we need to have. If anything, traditional values in hard work, good planning, being able to hone a team is just as important as it is today. I think where we try to complement it is just more the speed, the agility, and the need for experimentation today. Because what I think everyone mentioned is that change is happening, but it's happening at a much faster rate today than it was before. And so, how I try to kind of personally integrate that is really trying to, use my background to be able to kind of bring people together. So before joining the business, I actually, really tried to get skill sets that are more digitally innovative. So I was a management associate in Singtel, where I did product development and I did digital marketing. And then I went into consulting. So at McKinsey, you learn a lot on structured thinking, problem solving. And I was able to see, through clients, their own digital transformations or their own change managements that they were going through as well, and what challenges they normally face. And so being able to see that personally, I try to take the learnings and apply it to at least the bank today where I'm from. And it really is more about mindsets and people, I think a lot of it. And that's where we try to kind of, I guess, make it more relevant for today. So it's really about continuously being at least good business leaders, but really adding that flavor of agility, speed, and experimentation in the fast-changing world today.
One of my favorite words, experimentation in the fast-changing world. Is that Michael Sherwin Makatangay, one of our NEXTGEN committee members? Okay, I had to say your full name.
Yeah, thank
sir.
you. Thank you, VJ. First of all, I'd like to thank our esteemed guest speakers for sharing their wonderful, inspiring stories. No? Well, I'm Mike Makatangay. I'm the founder and CEO of 180 Consultants Singapore, and I'm also the vice chair of our membership committee. My question is this, no? Can you please share with us, and can you recall, no, the most challenging experience that you had working in your company, and of course negotiating with the higher generation, and how was it, and how are you able to handle it? Thank you.
Thank you for that question, Mike. I thought you were going to ask them if they're MAP members yet, because I am going to recruit them. Okay? Anyway, who would like to tackle that first? Mariana has the mic in her hand, so.
Well, I think generally my biggest challenges have been people-related, which is kind of ironic because I always, when I think about what could have been, I really wish I could have gone into something psychology-related or kind of organizational psychology-related. So in theory, it should come more naturally, but I find that when you're dealing with kind of personal emotions, it can make things very, very challenging to kind of make clear decisions on. So in that case, I find those moments the most challenging. In terms of kind of working with the generation above, I think, you know, we've experienced a transition point in the last few years where in our case, the 8th generation has now joined the 7th generation on boards and representing from a governance standpoint, and I can't say it's been easy to navigate, you know, having those honest conversations about our views and our feelings on things. I think more than anything, what I've realized is the importance of developing relationships so that when one needs to be honest, that honest is taken kind of for face value rather than misinterpreted. So I look to kind of double down on building those personal relationships where I can, so that when I do need to be honest, it at least can be taken for that face value.
Okay, thank you for Mariana. Honesty, that's a good one. Does anyone want to follow up on dealing with generation above you before I go to the next person who's asking a question? None? Okay, no one wants to take that up. Okay. Can you please state your name, where you're from,
I'm Minas
etc.?
Tambunting, and my question is to all 5 of you on the panel. As somebody with a family business, what is the best advice that you can give a person deciding whether or not they want to join and what to do when they join?
Note the last name. The person asking the
Thanks.
question.
I can try that. So I came back after being away for 10 years, finishing college, working overseas, and then doing my MBA. I came back in 1997. I came back because after 10 years of being away, I knew deep in my heart, I really wanted to be back in the Philippines, but I had no idea what I wanted to do. So I told my dad, "Dad, I'm gonna work with you, but just for a year. And if it doesn't work out, I'll go off and do my own thing." He said, "Sure, okay." So I've been with him for 26 years now. Wow. So honestly, when we were young, typical family business. You know, we worked in the warehouse, in the factory floor, in admin, accounting, but you don't really understand what the company does. Especially kami, B2B. You know, we don't have any brands, we don't have any consumer goods. What we make are raw materials used by other companies. So, very difficult business to understand. And as a young person, you don't really connect the dots in terms of how the company makes money, why customers buy your products. But I gave it a shot primarily because I was thinking, you know, the company's been around that long, and we survived, you know, all the crises. I remember the 70s, there was the oil crisis, the 80s, with all the political problems we had, 90s the same. So I was thinking to myself, you know, I'll give it a shot. I'll try it out. And again, if it doesn't work out, I can go off and do my own thing. Luckily for me, the generation above, they were very open to not just welcoming me in, but also giving me a chance to really share my ideas. I was allowed to speak up. I was allowed to give constructive criticism, of course, nicely and respectfully. So I think part of it has to come from you as the family business person who's going to start working in the business. But part of it also has to come from the older generation. They have to be open, they have to be willing to listen, and they have to be willing to communicate. At the end of the day, the communication, that's the key.
Oh, thank you for a lot of those insights. Huh? Anyone else want to tackle that? Or should we go to the next question? No one? Oh, sige. Let's go to Cliff, our conference chair, please.
Hi, good afternoon. My name is Cliff. I'm pleased to be here. Business is two things, financially driven and very short-termish. Let me explain. You go to business school, you work in McKinsey. The language is always about profitability, revenue growth. It's always like that, and that's how it's been, and that's what created the progress we're in. It's also very short-term, particularly if you're a listed company, because it's always about quarterly earnings, earnings per share, my stock price. And if you're the CEO, the pressure from the board is tremendous to make sure that that stock price is moving. In that context, how do you operationalize things that are not being measured by revenue and profit, by your P&L and your balance sheet? How do you operationalize greater good? How do you operationalize relationships, building these relationships? How do you operationalize collaboration? It's not an easy question, and it's a question that many struggle with because these values are very fluffy. So until you bring them down into the operations and until they are set in a way that it will drive behavior, it won't happen. Right? So as a next generation, what's your idea, or do you have any ideas about this, or just let the regulators impose on us and we'll comply? So can you share some insights?
Okay, you guys are nodding. Who would like to take that question, please? Operationalizing something fluffy.
Well, maybe I'll tackle it from the frame or starting from the family or an owner or stockholder mindset and family-led mindset. And I think the answer for me to that question is links to the financial and measurable outcomes, right? And we view our roles as stewards of capital, stewards of a legacy for multiple generations, right? So just by virtue of that role, we have to think longer term, but manage, of course, performance in the short term. And in order to do that, for me, it's about bringing in the values and setting the tone for the culture in the company, both of which contribute to driving the financial and measurable results. And as family members working in the company, or even if you're not working in the company, if you sit on the board, it's your number one job to make sure that the company as a whole, the people that represent the company, professionals, family, whatever, your products even, represent who you are. Because whether you like it or not, that's how the outsider views it. They see an Aboitiz branded product, an Ayala Gotianon, or whatever branded product, and it's a reflection of who you are as a family. So you are stewards of that, and I would say that it's actually something that our generation probably talks about more than the previous. And to the question earlier about something you struggle with the former generation, it's probably that. That's soft stuff, right? Talk leadership, come on, that's bullshit. let's talk about the hard stuff. And I think our generation realizes that even to recruit talent, you've got to be talking on that wavelength because it really deeply matters. Having purpose, having values that they can align with really matters. No? And so that's my take on your question.
Okay, we're going to take one last question from the audience.
I'm a second generation family executive in the family business, but I was allowed to work for government. I'm now in the National Development Company. How do you view, I know the opinion of my family towards government, so how do you view government in line with your work, in line with the family as a whole, and the viewpoint, from your viewpoint to the future as in terms of government being either your partner or being either your...
Oh, okay, and that's Jer, one of our NEXTGEN committee members. Jer, did you want to address that to someone specific? You're making my job really hard. I'm going to ask if Sheila can answer that. The role of government and how your family views it, especially in your area.
Well, that question is particularly interesting because at one point my father was in government. And so it's a bit of a interesting question in terms of how involved can you be in serving the country. And yeah, so for us, we see the government, at least in our family, right, as a potential avenue for you to get into if you so choose. So it's this kind of weird dynamic. We don't see it as an other. Sometimes the government could be us, because that's what happened in our case. Right now, obviously, the government is a very important partner because they regulate a lot of our businesses, especially the ones that I handle. Waste management is under DNR, DOH. Logistics obviously is under the ICT. So we need to work very, very closely to them. Otherwise, they can basically tell us to stop operating. So it's a very delicate dance. We obviously want to be compliant. We want to be respectful. And we need to do things the right way. So it's something that you just have to live with in this country. And hopefully, you know, this administration is going to be very easy to work with. But, you know, there's no guarantees. And so you just kind of do the best that you can and try to make sure you have all your ducks in a row to avoid any potential problems, because, you know, you just want like smooth sailing, good relationships across the board.
So basically, private-public sector collaboration.
Yes,
right? It's very important. I just want to ask one last question of everyone in our panel, and I want to tie it back to vision and values, right? The theme of this conference. And if you can please answer this from your heart, I guess. Starting with Isa, and then let's go to going that way, and then back to Anna, right? If you can please share, what is that legacy you personally want to be known for, you know, as you pass this on to future generations?
Okay. Heavy last question, VJ. I think, especially in the context that I'm in, where we're really the third generation, and we're in a transition actually from being a sibling partnership to cousin consortium, and moving the company also from really becoming a largely, even before professionalized kind of company. The legacy I really want to leave is to be able to transition that, you know, the company that my grandparents founded into the next level, whether it's, you know, bigger scale or bigger impact, as I mentioned. And I feel that I can facilitate that because, you know, from my background of also having worked outside and being more in a professional background, I feel that I can add a lot of things that I've seen in other companies. And so I feel that maybe that's really my role. It's really more as a steward, I think, for the company to grow to the next level. And it really isn't the family's role anymore to operate. It's really just to guide and be a steward for that growth. So I'm hoping to leave that legacy.
Thank you, Aisa.
Yeah, just to reuse my like to love analogy, it's something that's definitely kind of on my mind, because when we read brand studies, when we read feedback from analysts, consumers, I think generally we're lucky that there's a great amount of respect for Ayala, or that's what we read and hear. But I do feel that to be able to be relevant in this day and age, it needs to be more than just respect, and like it really needs to be love. And so I hope that I can add value to the way that we build, products and experiences, such that, it's, as corny as it sounds, customer first. I really think you can't go wrong if you're thinking about it from the customer's perspective first. And I hope that I can help drive that culture for Ayala to ensure that we continue to remain relevant, and also continue to kind of uplift standards of living, of kind of the environment in the Philippines, and contribute to that kind of success for the country.
Thank you.
So my last slide earlier talked about how I'm in the second gen, but we're already a cousin consortium, and carrying on that. Remember that one of the first projects I joined, which was how to restructure the company and not ensure, but at least try to pave the way for the success across the generations, past second, even third generation. It's our dream to eventually hit, hopefully, even fifth or eighth generation. So that's really, that's taking up a lot of the work at the moment for us.
Thank you. Sheila?
So I'm currently, like I said, still in the throes of managing this transition. So I'm super narrowly focused on like just getting through to the next day, making sure we're good across the board. But looking ahead, what I would like our generation to be known for, in the way that, let's say, my father established the business that he did, primarily to kind of support our family, right? When I think of at least the two businesses that I'm currently focused on, which is logistics and waste management, and I look at the country wherein we still really haven't seen our country industrialize. And logistics is a big part of, a big partner of industrialization. So for me, if we do our job correctly and we can support the country moving forward to being more industrialized, moving up the value chain in terms of production, I think that would be very meaningful. And then to be able to do that with the regard for environment, which is where our waste management company is involved, right? Sustainability, circularity, sustainability. So for us, we're very fortunate to be in the position that we're in to help kind of support these industries. And if, let's say, in the years to come, we see the country move forward and being like, okay, I think I was able to do something there, and I think that's more than enough. And then what happens third generation, fourth generation, like, I'll think about that eventually, someday.
Thank you. Anna?
Yeah, so I guess on the business front, I would love for our generation and our era of leadership to be characterized by driving change to improve the lives of Filipinos through technology and innovation. If we could do that, I'd be really proud. On a personal level, as a leader, I hope that I maybe end my leadership career with having a brand of being a human-centered leader. I think we spend a lot of time talking about sustainability and building sustainable corporations, and not so much time talking about sustainable leadership. And one of my pet peeves is when people say, wait, I'm gonna give you feedback, but trabaho lang to. And that's basically telling me to leave your feelings, leave your humanness at the door. I'm about to tell you something that's gonna hurt you, but leave it at the door. And I think that that's really unfair to a human being, right? And so a human-centered leadership for me is about helping people to grow as leaders by recognizing them at work as whole humans, and realizing that there is power in that. And actually, when you do that, you unleash the greater potential of people.
Wow, thank you. Wow, that was a wonderful way to end this Q&A. I love the humanity in all of you. My God, thank you so much for being here. Thank you so much for staying here, everyone. And we will now close this fireside chat. Maraming salamat.
A round of applause, please, for Miss Delgado, Mr. Lau, Miss Lina, Miss Yap, Miss Zobel de Ayala, and Mr. Manuel. On the screen are the prizes to be raffled off at 8:45 p.m. Reminder, physical presence is required, so please stay up to 9 p.m. Here are the raffle prizes. 1 unit of Unibest Personal 5-sheet cross-cut paper shredder from Pacific Sun Solutions Incorporated. 2 winners of 5 Enchanted Kingdom passes worth 5,500 pesos. An overnight stay in a deluxe room with breakfast for 2 at the Makati Shangri-La. A 2-night stay in a Grand Club room for 2 packs at the Grand Hyatt BGC. And our grand prize, a trip for 2 at Bollison's Island Club for 3 days and 2 nights. We will now listen to our closing keynote speaker, who will share his insights on embedded innovation, 7 steps to creating compelling value. Please welcome the founding CEO and managing partner of the NEXTGEN Group, Mr. Roland Garcia.
Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. I hope you're still awake. I don't know how I can follow that panel. That was really inspiring, especially for the NEXTGEN leaders. And hopefully I can provide some value. Just a little bit of background. I think, so I'm Roland Marco Garcia. Some people call me Nick Fury of the Philippines. And I've been an entrepreneur for almost a decade now. Currently founded the NEXTGEN Group. Also the partner for ASEAN in the Philippines of the Global Innovation Management Institute, which is based in Boston, Massachusetts. If you can think of it as the ISO for innovation management for corporations. I also teach innovation strategy at the Asian Institute of Management, working with a lot of corporations and their teams, how to essentially do tactical and strategic innovation for their respective organizations. Before that, I was former Chief Innovation Officer of a large private university and the inaugural director of its Innovation Center. So just a little bit of background about NEXTGEN. Essentially, we're an award-winning international growth and transformation company with essentially operations in Manila, but we're trying to expand to the greater region in Southeast Asia as well as Europe. We help organizations wherever they are in their innovation journey. Most of the companies in the Philippines have no innovation agenda, or some of them sort of are afraid to be able to do that, and we help them, both medium to large organizations, to be able to innovate. We do this in 4 ways. Some of the logos here are from our panel, but we build new digital ventures. As it stands, we're currently the only independent corporate venture building company in the Philippines, so we co-found technology ventures with corporations. Number 2 is we help transform their core business, looking at other things to increase top line and also increase their bottom line. Thirdly, which is mostly, I think, we provide a lot of value, is how do these corporations or businesses build an iOS, or what we call an innovation operating system? And lastly, all of these things won't be possible without an innovative workforce. So my job this afternoon is perhaps to share a little bit about our experience in 7 steps in how we sort of help organizations both locally and internationally, and how we advise the CEOs and boards in how to be able to do that. The first step is being an ambidextrous leader. What is ambidexterity? Essentially, ambidexterity is, for humans, is being able to use the right and the left. And to be able to essentially describe this, we go back to the 3 horizons of corporate innovation. Horizon 1 is essentially how do we optimize the core business? How do we essentially become more efficient in our operations? Number 2 is now looking at adjacent and emerging businesses that perhaps might be an extension of your value proposition. And thirdly is how do you create truly transformational businesses? An example of this is essentially what AWS did. AWS started out as an e-commerce platform selling books. Do you guys remember that? They did Horizon 2 by selling Kindle, which is extending their value proposition to selling essentially how do you have a digital book that feels like an actual book. And they pushed it further to Horizon 3 by building AWS. They previously had no experience in cloud computing. But now it's around, I think, 30% or more of their group revenue. So when we see leaders that look at what is the next core business, they are leaders who do both exploration and exploiting the current organization, current business. This is what we think really builds transformational companies. The organizations or leaders who do both exploration and exploitation at the same time. We think that these are the organizations that are resilient. These are the organizations that will stand the test of time. And we've seen this happen again and again and again. We've seen organizations, or incumbents as we call them, being disrupted by startups. And even the disruptors are getting disrupted. We've seen this. Chegg, for example, is an edtech company. When OpenAI launched, their stock price fell very rapidly. They were once a disruptor in the edtech space, but then OpenAI came and we know obviously what happened there. Right? Step 2 is we think organizations need to be able to embed innovation by building an iOS, or an innovation operating system. What is an iOS? Most organizations that we've seen, we've encountered in our practice and in case studies, right? Innovation is ad hoc. Pag may maisip lang. Naisip ni boss, naisip ni CEO, let's do innovation. It is not by design. It is by accident. And we've seen this again and again. We think that innovation is a management discipline. This is the reason why we think that what we've learned from our MBAs, or traditional business schools, do not apply to innovation management. Because if you apply the same KPIs to innovation, it usually doesn't work. A big conglomerate in Asia, what we've seen is they just previously fired their chief innovation officer because after a year, the board was looking for revenue. In innovation, revenue or profit is not the main KPI, it's validated learning. It's learning through experimentation, what the panel was talking about earlier. Right? So we think that most of these managers, and we've seen this again and again, right? A good idea and a bad idea looks the same at the start. A crazy idea and a good idea, like for example, Elon Musk saying, I want to build reusable rockets. A lot of VCs said, nah, pass, it's not going to work. But then, because at the start it looks bad, it looks good, we don't know. And this is why experimentation is very important, and revenue is not the main KPI. That's just an example of a KPI in innovation management, right? Validated learning. And we've seen that usually enterprise innovation looks like this, magulo. No? It's one department doing this, one department doing that. There's no centralized operating system for innovation that makes it standard and makes it effective, essentially. This is what we think innovation should look like in a big organization. It should have stage gates, right? It should have a very specific path to be able to achieve the KPI set by an organization. It also looks like this. An iOS essentially has three things: strategy, capacity, and discipline. In strategy, what is your innovation intent? Where do you innovate? Where do you not innovate? Because a lot of organizations that you've seen, they're very unfocused in their innovation. You cannot innovate everything. You can't innovate in all of the industries, for example. You cannot do it all at once, right? Fields of play, where you're going to play, where you're not going to play, and how do you actually build what we call portfolio construction, much like a venture capitalist build the portfolio to actually invest in. Second is essentially innovation capacity. There we're talking about processes, people, and metrics. And lastly, discipline, leadership, culture, right? And what is the right organizational structure for innovation? For example, what we usually advise is for innovation to be at the very top of the organizational chart, because if not, innovation will not have the power nor the legitimacy in the boardroom to actually drive and yield innovation ROI. Right? So these are sort of the three things we look at in an iOS. Right? So that's iOS. The third one, and maybe we can talk about this later on. If you're still around during drinks, we can talk about it. The third one is have a clear and single definition of innovation. For HR people, innovation looks differently. For IT, it's about new apps, new tech, ChatGPT, Gen AI, and all of these RPAs, right? But leadership, innovation for me lives at the very top of the organizational chart. Correct, it's everyone's job to innovate. But if there is no clear and single definition of innovation, usually magulo po ang innovation in an organization. We don't know what innovation is. Because for example, for process improvement, applying Six Sigma can be an innovation, and that's okay. For some organizations, innovation to them is how do we launch new businesses consistently? For some organizations, how do we do iPhone 13, 15, 16, etc.? Very different. So the leader that we've seen, we always advise, needs to have a singular definition of what innovation is. This is from the Global Innovation Management Institute to distinguish invention from innovation. Because invention is not really, you build tech, but you're not able to capture the value of that tech. So we try to standardize what innovation means, essentially. And what we've seen is the most general one, and it might be different for your respective organizations, is number one, to create and capture new value in new ways across the value chain. When we talk about the value chain, we're talking about production, offering, delivery, markets, and there's sub-segments under that. If the innovation is not able to capture the value, you just created it, we do not think that it's business innovation. Because the value was not created for the stakeholders that it is hopefully going to serve. So we think that leaders should have a singular definition of innovation and to create a platform for all of the people in the organization to rally around. Which leads us to step 4, right? Start with your growth gap in case for change, because innovation does not mean anything, at least for the business, if it does not tie, for example, to a specific KPI. You're going to see the green line, it's the current course, it's the current run rate of the organization, whether that be in, usually it's in financial metrics, but usually there are targets. One of the big logistics companies we work with said, okay, our growth gap is around 30 billion, and we need to achieve that in 3 years. So this is essentially 10 billion per year. So he knows what the growth gap is, and when we ask him, sir, how do you plan to do that? And we calculated, we used innovation accounting, which we'll explain later on. We calculated it, and it does not close the gap of the growth that he wanted. Right? So obviously there are different innovation vehicles. There are around 7 or 8. I'll explain that later on. But we had to add different innovation vehicles to be able to close the growth gap to the time that he wanted it closed. And we asked him, sir, how much do you want to invest? And it was not, again, we calculated it, that it did not reach the growth gap that he said, right? So here we think, and obviously it was already fixed, right? We see a lot of companies, yes, I want to innovate, but it's lip service. When you ask them about numbers, are you willing to invest, for example, $1 billion to be able to make this happen? The board will say no. It's too much, too risky. That's what we call innovation theater. We've seen this again and again. Innovation theater, especially for emerging markets, is very rampant. So we always start the conversation with a growth gap and a very clear investment profile, right? How much do you want to invest, when, stretch targets, metrics, what is causing the pressure? Is it the board? Is it your customers, competition, etc.? And how much do they want to go? Local, global, they want to do incremental innovation, breakthrough innovation, near core innovation, far from core, big, small bets. So we profile all of these things to understand, okay, what is the burning platform or the case for change for the organization? For JFK, it was very clear when they launched the space program, right? They wanted to beat Russia. They wanted to close that gap within a decade, and no money is in play. Everyone rallied around it. NASA didn't know how to send people to the moon, essentially, or to outer space. But the growth gap and essentially the case for change was a driving point for people to rally around JFK. It was very clear innovation intent. Right? We're nearing the end, but step 5 is essentially how do you build a time sequence innovation portfolio and think like a venture capitalist or an entrepreneur within a large organization. So a lot of people ask us, innovation is risky, we don't know if it's going to work, how do we get our ROI? And the answer to that is you do not place all of your eggs in one basket. You need to build a portfolio, much like how a VC does it. And this is an actual innovation portfolio of Bayer. Bayer started with 400 ideas. They did metered funding for each level or each sort of phase of their innovation process. Less and less ideas went through that process, and the more money they gave into those particular projects. And it fed to the process, or the innovation process. Right? We think that apart from the portfolio, you need to time sequence a portfolio, just like Apple. Right? So there are innovations that you can do right away. There are innovations that you can do, for example, in 6 to 12 months. There are innovations that are 5 years and above. A time sequence innovation portfolio is very important because a lot of those innovation projects are not going to work. But some of them might. Right? And usually the unit economics for venture capitalists is that the one unicorn will outshine the 9 that failed. Step 6 is use innovation accounting to measure innovation performance. Organizations use different KPIs, but we think that we need to use a risk-adjusted NPV that is with the growth gap at each stage of the innovation funnel. So if you have an innovation funnel, for example, of 9 steps, you can calculate the NPV or the risk-adjusted NPV of each project for each phase of the portfolio. Because here now you're going to see, okay, when you report back to the board, this is our RANPV, this is our IRR, right? And we think by year X, we are going to reach our growth gap. A lot of innovations or innovation projects don't have a specific calculation or an ROI, right, to actually measure innovation. We've seen this again and again. And we think there are tools that you can use to be able to measure your innovation portfolio. Right? And lastly, and I think this is the most interesting, because we need to make sure that all organizations who are ambidextrous have a multi-vehicle innovation portfolio. And you can do innovation in many ways. You can do internal transformation. You can do open innovation, this collaboration with startups. The most attractive one, what most organizations do is M&A, or mergers and acquisitions. They acquire or buy companies. A lot of big companies have CVCs, or corporate venture capital. And lastly, they do corporate venture building. And there are many more vehicles to do innovation. This is what essentially buy, invest, partner, or build. These are different sort of innovation channels that you can use, right? This is sort of examples for M&A, right? Disney, Pixar, and Marvel, they buy companies, Google. For CVC, in the Philippines, we have Globe doing Kickstart Ventures. We have Grab Ventures, right? External venture building, Pfizer, the Moderna vaccine, for example, came from a corporate venture building engagement, right? And in internal CVB, or internal venture building, we have 917 Ventures, for example, of Globe. And other organizations, Triber, for example, rainmaking innovation, right? Disney did a lot of these innovation vehicles all at the same time. They did M&A at the start, right? Acquired Lucasfilm, Pixar. They did a corporate venture building, Walt Disney Imagineering. They also did corporate venture capital, right? These are sort of different innovation vehicles that were used at very different strategies for a specific growth gap. We see that as well with Consulta MD, right? So we deconstructed the path of Consulta MD. This is what happened, right? So it was an M&A play, corporate venture capital play through Kickstart, for example, a 917 play, an M&A play of aid, in which they consolidated all of their sort of assets to build a health tech super app. So these are corporate venturing or corporate innovation vehicles that were used in different ways, right? That we think really provides a lot of value or yield for innovation for these respective organizations. So just to recap, embedded innovation, number one, be an ambidextrous leader, doing both new and the now and the new. Second is build an innovation operating system to standardize innovation. Number three is to have a clear and single definition of what innovation is. Number four, start with your growth gap and case for change to rally people around the vision. Number five, build a time sequence innovation portfolio and think like a venture capitalist. Number six, use innovation accounting to measure innovation performance. And number seven, use different innovation vehicles to effectively create the yield for your innovation activities. So hopefully I provided some value, ladies and gentlemen, and enjoy the rest of your evening. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Garcia. At this point, may I call on the MAP NEXTGEN Committee Co-Vice Chair to talk about the last two parts of today's fourth MAP NEXTGEN Conference, namely the speed networking and the free flow networking cocktails. Please welcome Ms. Liza Rideloso.
Good evening, everyone. Are you still here? Are you still alive? Are you ready for the next part? I don't hear you. Yeah? Okay, good. Thank you. And I'd like to thank everyone who participated in the dress code. We worked really hard on that theme. And, well, some of us either didn't get the memo or gained a little weight during the pandemic. But anyways, thank you for coming in the dress code. And, of course, I'm here to tell you about what's going to happen next. So we are going to move down to the second floor to the collab, all right? So remember, we're on the third floor in case you've forgotten, and we will go down to the second floor, and we will go make a right and another right into the collab. And the collab has two, they have the upper deck and the lower deck. So the speed networking will be at the upper deck. So I hope that all of you will join us and go up to the speed networking. It's a great way to meet other people, to expand your network, and to discuss further what was said by the moderators, the panelists, and the speakers. Or you just want to get to know another executive. So this is going to be great for you and for all of us to go together. So we will go in a few minutes to the collab. And remember, when you get to the collab, you go up to the mezzanine or the upper floor because that's where the speed networking will be. So how will the speed networking be? So we have the layout, as you can see on the screen. So the layout of the speed networking, we will have 4 sections. You can choose any sections that you would like to be in. And in that section, we will move clockwise, or just move to your left, okay? All right, and this will be hosted by Miss Georgina or George Carlos. She is a member of the NEXTGEN committee. Where are you, George? She's very active, and she is the founder and pack leader of Fetch Naturals. So if you have your anak na is a dog or a cat, you need to talk with George because she really loves animals. All right, okay, so next, after the speed networking, we will have that for some time. So we will have different rounds of speed networking. And then after the speed networking, we have the cocktails. So we will be able to have free-flowing cocktails. We have different drinks. We have the NEXTGEN drink that we put together. And we hope that you can further take the conversations there with those that you network with. And then from there, we will have the closing and the raffle. So I hope that you will stay for the raffle. Who wants to go to Balasid? Balasid. Who wants to go to Balasid? Who wants to go to Balasid? Because I know Donna, Cliff, and I want to go. Do you want to go? Well, if you want to go, stay for the raffle. Do you want to go to Balasin? Stay for the raffle. All right. So, all right, everyone. So we will have someone that will be holding like a placard. You can follow them and have a really nice evening. Thank you, everyone. Please join us. Please join us.
Thank you, Deliza. At this point, may we request everyone to proceed to the collab at the 2nd floor for the speed networking and the networking fellowship cocktails.
All my ladies.